Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Kate and I'm a marketing consultant. I'm based out of Kansas City. I grew up on a Black Angus ranch and spent 4 years marketing in the finance sector before I joined the team at Grapevine. So Grapevine Local Food Marketing is a website and marketing company serving farms, local food businesses, and food nonprofits, and we're also the sponsor of this webinar. So all the information included in this presentation comes courtesy of our videography expert, Kelsey, who is here with us today to help answer questions. And I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone, but please feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions. We'll also have some time at the end of the presentation for those as well. So let me do that. Okay. So today's webinar is to help you efficiently make effective videos for your farm business. And by effective, I mean videos that help you communicate and connect with your audience and grow your business. So if you're thinking, yes, videos are great, but how much impact do they really have? Here are a few statistics. 72% of customers say they would rather learn about a product from a video. Social media posts with video have 48% more views, and a website is 53 times more likely to reach the front page of Google if it has a video. So video marketing is an awesome tool and a powerful tool, but it's often underutilized because it can be a little bit intimidating. So today we're sharing some tips to help you quickly capture, edit, and share quality videos. When you're making a video, the most important thing to keep in mind is to make sure it's easy for your audience to keep watching. You don't want to lose them, so we've put together the following 10 tips with that goal in mind. And here we go. So tip number 1 is plan content based on your audience. So the subject matter you decide to focus on, of course, is going to depend on the purpose of your video. Consider your audience and what you want to communicate to them. This always helps me brainstorm and clarify the points I'm trying to get across, kind of narrow it down. Maybe you're getting a lot of the same questions about a tomato variety at markets. Maybe you want people to understand the difference between soil grown and hydroponic. Maybe you have a surplus of whole chickens, but keep hearing from customers that they just don't know what to do with whole chickens. When you consider your audience, what they know, and what you want to tell them, that will help you fill in the gaps content-wise. Tip number 2 is pretty simple. In fact, it's so simple that it's easy to forget. Clean your camera lens. So you're a farmer, your phone might get pretty dirty. If you want a clear picture, turn it around, look at the camera lens, and give it a wipe. If you have a case that covers your lens as well, you might have to take that off sometimes to clean inside the case and get to your lens. Ideally, you'd use a microfiber cloth to do this, like the one you might use to clean your glasses or sunglasses. But in a pinch, you can go for the softest, cleanest piece of clothing you're wearing and wipe with that. So this can make a really big difference in your picture quality and will make it easier for your audience to see what you're trying to show them. Tip number 3 is choose your camera orientation. So it's pretty normal for all of us to hold our phones vertically because that's how we're using them throughout the day. However, when you're making a video with the intention of sharing it on multiple platforms, it'll work better if you turn the phone and record a horizontal picture. So this fills up most screens better, and people watching video on their phones will still have the option to turn their phones to view the full screen horizontal video. An exception to this is when you're using Instagram stories. So those are optimized for viewing on mobile and should be recorded vertically. But no matter what platform you're working in, it's important to be consistent. If you mix horizontal and vertical shots in one video, it can be really visually confusing and difficult to follow for your audience. So that means they'll probably stop watching. So try to avoid just mixing those orientations. Tip number 4, keep it short. Of course, the actual video length will depend on your audience and what your topic is, but whenever possible, it's a good idea to keep your videos short and sweet. Longer videos have to be really engaging for people to watch them all of the way through. And any lulls are an opportunity for them to stop watching. So here's a rule of thumb you can use. If you can't sit and watch the finished edited video all the way through 3 times without wanting to fast forward or skip parts, it's probably dragging on too long. At that point, you can comb through a last time and see if there's anything that you can cut or shorten. Another option is if you have a long video, maybe it would work as a series of smaller videos. You can really get creative and find ways to keep your videos interesting and informative in smaller parcels of time. Another thing to remember is if you're recording for a specific social media platform, a lot of them have video limits. So Instagram stories have a limit of 15 seconds. If you do record a longer video, it will cut it into pieces for you. So that's an option as well. Instagram feed has a limit of 1 minute. Instagram TV has a limit of 60 minutes. Twitter has a limit of 2 minutes. Facebook and YouTube, you don't have to worry about length on those. Facebook allows up to 240 minutes. So if you surpass that, you've made a movie. Congratulations. All right. Tip number 6, don't zoom. So on a phone, zooming in won't actually magnify the image like it would in a fancier camera with a glass lens. Instead, it will just degrade the image quality. So the more you zoom, the more degraded it becomes. You want your videos to look as good as possible, so avoid zooming in. If you need to get closer, that's always a better option. And if you need to crop something out, you can always do that later during the editing phase, which we'll cover here as well. Tip number 6 is manage sound. So be aware of and avoid extra noise in your videos. It might sound very slight to you during the recording process, but can actually end up being a big problem. There might be background noise like a generator or traffic on the road or even just wind. Once you see the actual recording, this can be really distracting and make it impossible to hear what you're saying. Another thing to watch out for is try not to create more noise yourself. You want to figure out where the microphone on your phone is and try not to touch it. So brushing against that with clothing or your thumb can sound like the wind and will drown out other audio you might be trying to capture. Okay, tip number 7, look at lighting. So before you start recording, ask yourself, where is the light and the shadow? Harsh sunlight is tricky to film or photograph in. Cloudy days or areas of open shade result in higher quality videos. But since you can't control the weather and you might only have one day to capture a specific farm activity, here is some basic advice. When you can, position your subject facing the sun with the sun shining on it. If you're the one filming, you would want to be the one with the sun at your back. Then point your camera at your subject and keep an eye out for your own shadow. So you might have to shift to either side to avoid having your shadow, just your outstretched arm with your camera in it in the video. Want to avoid that. And the same goes for if you're filming yourself, make sure you don't end up with a camera shadow across your face. This will give you the best chance of capturing good color and detail in your shots. Of course, there are always exceptions, and as you play around with video, you might find some really cool backlit shots too. The best way to learn about lighting is to take your phone outside and just experiment with how your subjects look in different lighting conditions and from different angles. Okay, tip number 8 is review your clips the same day. So once you're done filming, you should review your footage the same day if possible, or as soon as you can. As you're reviewing your video captures, you'll also want to think about where your audience will be when they're watching, which will probably be inside. So when you're watching inside, you'll be able to see your screen better. You'll also be able to hear the video better. And this gives you a chance to revise or redo anything that you might have missed during the initial filming process. You don't want to be in a position where a month after capturing your videos, you watch them and find out your lens was smudged and you can't hear anything because of the wind. And you might not even be in a position to be able to redo those videos at that point. So reviewing them as soon as you can will help you avoid that issue. Okay, tip number 9 is get gear. There are some cool gadgets that make filming with a phone a lot easier. So 2 things we'd recommend if you have a little money in your business or grant budget are a monkey or gorilla tripod that you can use anywhere. These are very portable, and maybe even a tool called a Steadicam. So both of these things allow you to get a really smooth, steady reel of clips to use. A nice smooth video is a lot easier to follow. I don't know if you've ever tried to take a video just kind of holding your phone in the air. There's at least always a tiny bit of movement there. So if you're interested in learning more about those tools, we will send a follow-up email over the weekend that has information about all of the technical things we're talking about, some software for editing that we'll talk about here shortly, and this gear. And if spending money on gear isn't an option for you, kind of a hack is to put your phone on any solid surface. That can be a fence post or even the ground. That will help you get a lot steadier of a video. Okay, tip number 10, take care of your clips. This is our final tip, and it can save you a lot of time and frustration in the long run. So over the years, you might collect hundreds or thousands of photos and videos. So try not to learn the hard lesson of losing all your files because they aren't properly backed up. And who knows, after you finish your video, you might want to reuse clips in the future for other videos. So the best thing to do before you start editing is to import your video clips from your phone into either a hard drive or the cloud. And you definitely want to put those manually in a folder that you have named so they're easy to find. Again, if you have hundreds or thousands of files, you don't just want them all loose without names. It'll be impossible to find. So to do this, you'll need to be able to connect your phone to your computer, which is possible for most standard devices with just a USB cable. On Mac, you can use a program called Image Capture that's built into your computer, and it also works on all phones. And then on a PC, you can just go to the Start menu, and then you'd click Import, and then from USB, this will all be in the resources we're going to send out this weekend as well. And there are a ton of user-friendly guides to help you with this process for your specific phone and computer. So if all else fails, a quick Google search can be very helpful here. Okay, so those are our 10 tips, but what do you do after you capture and store your videos? Next, I'm going to show you how to use free software to edit your videos. We'll talk about 2 programs, iMovie and OpenShot. The demo today will be done in iMovie, but in the resources we send in our follow-up, we'll have a demo video for OpenShot as well, which is available on both Mac and PC. So these have a lot of pretty extensive features, but today I'm going to give you a basic rundown of what will be helpful to you starting out. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and switch over to iMovie. So give me just a minute to do that. Okay, can everybody see that all right?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I learned to edit video by watching, and I'm just going to walk you through importing your files, doing some basic editing, and coming up with a finished product. This is iMovie, but like I mentioned earlier, OpenShot is also an option, and they have very similar interfaces, so everything I'm going to show you today would also apply in OpenShot. So you'll see I don't have anything in here right now. The first thing I need to do is import some clips that I have. So I'm going to click Import Media. And then in my documents, I have my clips numbered here, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to import all of those. Okay, so I have 3 clips. None of them are too long. And to get started with editing, I'm just going to drag them down into the editing pane below. And if I drag them down next to each other, they'll just snap together like that. So it's really easy to just add those right in. And you can preview your video as you're editing. So I could just play this from the beginning like this.
This is our Whitefield house.
And you'll see right here, my video is 1 minute and 46 seconds. That's pretty good. I typically try to stay under 2 minutes, but I do want to try to shorten it up a little bit. So this middle clip is my longest. I'm going to see if I can cut that anywhere. So I'm going to play this.
This is what we'll be picking and eating. Probably straight into January.
Okay, that seems like a good place to cut that clip. So I have my cursor right here. Now I'm going to right click and click split clip. So now this is 2 clips that I can edit separately. This first one is now the length that I want it. I want to look in this clip now and see if there's anything that I still want to use or if I can get rid of all of that. So
house where we harden off a lot of the early season plant.
I think I want to use toward the end of this clip. Okay, so now that I don't need anything in the middle of the clip to crop it a little bit more easily, I can just drag to where I want that to start. And then I'll just double check that that's good by dragging my cursor here.
And this.
Perfect. Okay, so you'll see where these clips join together. If I press play, they pretty seamlessly blend already.
Over here, we've got some of the last.
Great. Okay, so we have our basic video layout here. The next thing I'll show you is how to add an audio track if you want to. So this could be music, this could be a voiceover. One thing you want to keep in mind if you are adding music to your video is you have to have the rights to that music, so make sure it has an open license. I would recommend YouTube Audio Library. You can filter there and look for only music that you can use for whatever you want. You don't need a license for it. So that's what I did. And I'm going to import again. And this time I have an audio track. So this is a song that I found on YouTube Audio Library. I confirmed that I can use it in this video without needing the rights to it. And to add that, I will just drag it down and it will automatically pop below my video. The first thing I want to do is match this up to the length of my video. The track is likely much, much longer. Yes, it is. And the nice thing about iMovie is it will just match these up. So you can see those are exactly the same length now. Okay, so now if I hit play, you should be able to hear my audio track as well. And you can, but it's way too loud. Now I can't hear the voiceover, so I need to adjust the audio here. So I'm going to click on that. And I want to click, oh, it's here under everyone's images. Okay, so I'll click this little volume icon here with my clip selected, and then I just want to pull this down. And I want that music to be pretty subtle, so I'm going to go with 10%, and then we'll play that and see where we're at.
Field house, we moved it down from Whitefield.
To be a little bit more even. So again, make sure that's selected. And I'm going to go down to 5%.
Field house, we moved it down.
That's better. Now I can hear music, but I can also hear the voiceover, so that is great. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add a little intro title so that people can see what this video is about, what they can expect, where it's happening at, that sort of thing. So if you click on titles, you'll have quite a number of options here. And I just want to go with something simple. Usually you want to keep this pretty minimal. I recommend not going overboard with text. That can add a lot of clutter to your video and be visually confusing. So I'll just add something small. So that automatically overlays on my video wherever I place it. And here I'll just say, welcome to our farm. And now if I play that,
this is our Whitefield house.
It already has a nice little transition.
Got the shape
It lasts a little too long, so you would adjust that the same way you would any of your other clips. Just going to make this shorter and see how that looks.
This is our Whitefield house. We moved it down from Whitefield.
Better.
Got the shape.
Okay, so now we have a title, we have audio, and we have our video laid out like we want it. Now let's add some transitions. So maybe at the end I want it to fade to black. Again, you want to be pretty conservative with these transitions. They can be a little too much if you do too much. Like you'll see some of these, you can preview them just by doing this, and that's pretty busy. So just be careful with how many of these you're using and where. And okay, I did add the fade to black, so you can see that here at the end. And if I play this, it'll just automatically be applied.
This end of our main barnyard. This is one of the coolest spots on the farm. This is our sugar house.
There you go. And if I wanted, I could add another title here. It just says, we hope you will visit us soon. Okay. And then you also have the option of adding image filters or doing a little light image editing here. So I'll show you how to do that. You would just click on your clip. For filters, you would want to click on these 3 circles. And then you'll just see you have some options to choose from here. Some of them pretty subtle, some of them pretty colorful. So I'll just choose Western here. And you can see that that adds kind of a warm glow to the video. You can definitely use that to give all of your videos a similar tone. You do have to apply it to each clip separately. So I could go through and I could add the Western filter to each of these. You also have the option, if you click here, to edit things a little more hands-on, so you can update the saturation and the contrast here as well. Again, you want to maintain the integrity of the original video, so try not to go all in on those. And then there are also some options here that will automatically update the color in your video. If you wanted to crop a video like we talked about, where you don't want to zoom in because that will distort your video, but you do want to show something a little bit closer, you can crop your clips here. Okay. So now we have some image filters on. We have some music. We have our titles, our fade out. If I wanted to add some transitions between the clips, I could do that here. So I might do a cross blur. Yeah, let's try that. So you can just drag that in between the clips. It'll automatically apply it, and you can see easily what that looks like. Yeah, that's good. And you can always experiment with these to see what you like to use. Let me see what time we're at, because I do have a question for everybody. Okay, so a question that I have, is there any interest, this is a tiny bit more advanced, but I can show you how to add your logo to the videos as well, if that's something anyone is interested in.
I'd like to see that.
Okay. So if you want to add your logo, that does give you an extra level of branding. So now I just want to add, do I have like a pretend logo here? Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So this is my logo. Let's say I want to have that show up toward the end of the video before it says the end, or we hope you'll visit us soon. So I can drag this down. Okay, and I actually think I want that on top. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, and I want to do picture in picture here.
This end of our main barnyard, this is one of the coolest spots on the farm. This is our sugar house.
Let me replay that again.
Barnyard, this is one of the coolest spots on the farm.
Okay.
It's not showing.
So it showed up, it's in a weird spot, so I'm going to move this a little bit. And I don't want it to dissolve. I'm going to say I want it to zoom. And let's see what that does.
This is
you can play around with this in different parts of your video. So you can see my logo has white on it. I might want to add it to a darker part. Let's see. Where it's not in the sky. Okay, and I can move it. So let's try putting it toward the bottom where it's over that building. And I actually liked it better as dissolve. Okay.
But again, around and show you this end of our main barnyard. This is one of the coolest spots on the farm.
There we go.
Our sugar house.
My logo is a very small file. This is just a temporary logo. If you had a bigger logo, you might even be able to get it to be like an entire overlay here. And I will see if I can make it bigger. Yes, I can make it bigger. So that's how you would get your logo to show up.
This is one of the coolest
and I'll
spots
briefly
on the
run
farm.
through that again.
This is our sugar.
So you drag the photo above your video clip, and then you'll click on the photo. And in this upper toolbar here, it will default to cutaway, which is not what you want. That will just make the image like a floating image above your picture. You just kind of want it to appear as part of the video. So you want to select picture in picture. And then while you're doing that, you should be able to move it around to see, put it where you want it to be in the image. Probably the most important thing there is you want your logo to have a transparent background. If this had a white or black background, that would show up as well. So that is an important step there. Okay, so now this video is ready to publish, and I will show you how to do that. So when you're happy with your product, you'll go up here and you'll go to File, and you want to go to Share, and then File again. This will give you a final file that's suitable for multiple places instead of just Facebook or YouTube. And then here I'll just say our farm tour. Description, it's up to you if you want to include a description or not. Same with tags. You can include tags if you use them to keep track of the files on your device, but I don't do that, so I'm going to just leave that as it is. Format will stay the same. Resolution, 1080p is the highest quality, and I do want a high quality video. The only reason you would want to compromise on that is if for some reason you're uploading your video to a channel that has restrictions on file size. Quality, I'm going to leave that at high, and compress faster. There's little difference here. If you have a lot of time and you're just going to set it and forget it, you can definitely do better quality, but I'm going to do faster here. Then I'll click next, choose where I want that to live, and save it. And clearly I've been practicing this, so I already have a file named that, but I'll just replace it. Okay, so give me just a minute to navigate back to the slideshow here. Stop sharing that. And you're actually just going to be looking at the exact same slide you were when we left, but this is still what we're talking about. So, okay, so now you have your finished video. The final step is to put this out into the world, share it. So to do that, I do recommend creating a YouTube account for one main reason. If your video is hosted on YouTube, you can always post it somewhere else. So on YouTube, you can directly share to other social media channels right from where your video is posted. You can also embed your video really easily on your website just by copying and pasting a code from YouTube. And that's not true for other platforms. If you post to Facebook, you can't embed that on your website. You can't share it across all platforms. You can share it in some places, but it's just not quite as functional. And for YouTube, you can also use some of their built-in features that help with search engine results. And we'll share some tips for optimizing that to your advantage in the resources we're going to send out this weekend as well. So some final notes on editing. It can be really frustrating, especially if you've never done it before, and especially if you have a lot of other work to do. So the first time you're editing, you probably want to pick a block of 2 to 3 hours to work on that for your first project, just so that you're not feeling, pressured for time. You could be a total natural, but most people will take a while to get it all figured out. I know I did. And remember that Google is your friend. There are solutions to a ton of different problems. Almost every question you could ask about video editing exists on the internet. So people have really broken that down and made it easy to digest. So that's a really quick crash course on making videos. And we do have about 20 minutes left for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions for myself or Kelsey? And I'll go ahead and unmute everyone in case you're muted.
I have a question about sort of frequency of posting videos. Have you found any sort of rule of thumb for how often it makes sense to post? And I'm thinking if less is better, that would fit a farm schedule a little better. So I'm wondering if you found any sort of rules of thumb around that.
I would say if you're posting frequently, you could try to make, maybe considering the amount of labor that goes into creating a video, maybe 1 in 10 posts a video. Like maybe just consistency is really key with everything social media. So once a month, once a week, depending on your kind of schedule. Kelsey, do you have anything else on that?
I totally agree. And it is an involved process to make the actual video. I've seen some farmers do it where they make a really simple video once a week to tell people what's in their CSA box, and kind of streamlining the actual video process so that it is feasible to turn it out once a week. I think even if you just have one good video that you can share when you're advertising a farm event or just to have on your website, I think that's adequate. And I know you guys don't need any more pressure to spend more time on your phones. But even just one good video, I think, could make a huge difference for your reach, for reaching customers.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and just one small tidbit to add on that, especially considering the statistic about how much more likely you are to show up in Google with, I mean, that was just one video on a page. So yeah, one video could definitely even have a huge impact. Do we have any other questions?
I have another one.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So in your sample video, there's obviously a lot of background noise in the audio. Are there any like easy, relatively inexpensive ways to deal with that and minimize that?
So at least in iMovie, there are a couple of options. You can always adjust the volume level of specific clips. So if you find that one has an overwhelming amount of noise, you could always make that clip lower the audio on that clip. Another option is you can mute all of your clips and just include a voiceover or music, and then you don't have to hear any of the background noise. Kelsey, do you know of any other tools in there that kind of level out the noise?
I'm not sure how much you can play with levels in iMovie, but you can, like you said, you can adjust the levels of different clips, sometimes just by kind of dragging right on the audio. But yeah, I think probably the least expensive and most efficient way to deal with background noise is going to be a creative workaround on your part. Like Kate said, maybe muting that audio and filling in with a voiceover later, or adding in some music that kind of blends in with that truck going by and kind of dragging the level of the music down. Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
And Mike, I know I didn't show that in the video, but if you do want to turn off the noise completely on those clips, when I was lowering the volume of the music, you could just do that, but you would lower it all the way to 0. And then whatever you were putting over it instead, the music or a voiceover, you could add both if you wanted to and adjust those to a volume level that is pleasant to you.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Quick comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Joyce with the Elephant Garden, and I'm glad Mike asked that question because our garden is actually located in the middle of our neighborhood, and we are like 2 blocks from a fire station. So we constantly get background noise, even if we're talking to customers or trying to take a video, etc. So do you have any suggestions on what we might do if we wanted to video something at the garden itself during a work day?
I honestly don't have any suggestions to completely kind of cut out a noise that's happening in the background unless you do want to add a voiceover later, which that would be process for that would be you would want to, record what you're doing, and then you would want to go to a quiet place inside and kind of record what you want to. That can make it difficult, to capture authentic interactions. But I will also say that I think some background noise or some interruptions, people are pretty forgiving. They definitely don't expect, a professional studio video all of the time. And, is that even what they're looking for? Because
Right. If we were going to show you the actual day-to-day operation of the Elephant Garden, that's our reality. I mean, our garden is in the middle of a residential block and down the street from a fire station, and we get traffic, etc., dogs barking, the whole thing. But that's the reality of where we are. So if we make a video, we want it to be able to tell you about the elephant gardens and show you what we're doing and how we're progressing, etc. But we don't want too many interruptions in there so that you can't hear or see what we're really doing, especially the hearing part. If we're trying to tell you about, these are where we grow our tomatoes, or this is the squash, and this is the stage they're in. So I was just wondering about how to kind of nullify some of that noise that's back there. But
I'm sorry, Joyce, did
no,
I?
fine.
Okay, that actually did give me an idea. This is kind of a workaround, I guess, for that. But something you might want to try is taking some really short clips. And that way, if you have interruptions, you could really easily, without putting a lot of work into one, redo it at a different point. And then you would just have more clips than I showed today, but they would be much shorter. You could find the ones that have the highest kind of audio integrity and put those together. And that would be a good way, I think, to avoid interruptions without putting a lot of time and effort into just changing the entire environment that you're recording in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, this is Jessica. My question is about voiceovers. If it turns out you want to do a voiceover for your video because it just seems to work better, do you record the voiceover in like iMovie or OpenShot, or do you have to record a voice file somewhere else and then import it?
So when I've recorded voiceovers, and Kelsey might have something different to add here, but I've just used like an audio note-taking app on my phone, so that it's not saving it as a video file or anything. I want it to be saved as an audio file so I can just really easily layer it over the video.
That's exactly what I would do too. And then that way I'm using the phone microphone too, so the sound will be pretty consistent with everything else in your video. And there are little mics, like packs that clothes or something. And you can get really inexpensive little mic systems that you can get to sync with your phone. And maybe that's something that I could do a little research on, and we could send along in those resources this weekend too, because yeah, Joyce, I hadn't thought about, I used to live 2 doors down from a fire station, and I could not have a phone conversation at my house.
That is so true.
Yeah, so I hadn't even thought of that when we were working on this. But that is something to think about for sure.
Okay, we do still have about 10 minutes left. Anybody else have questions? Okay, well, I think we'll call it a night, but like I said earlier, this webinar will be available in the resources that we are sending to you this weekend. We will also include a link to an OpenShot demo. So if you do not have a Mac and you're using a PC and you are going to want to use OpenShot, which is completely free, we have a demo for that as well that will be available to you. And then we'll have information on all of that gear that we mentioned, all of the software that we mentioned, that sort of thing. So last questions?
This is Jessica. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time this evening to share this with us. I know it's definitely been illuminating for me, who has never made a video successfully before. So this will help me quite a bit, especially with a PC tutorial, as I'm a PC user. So that will be really helpful. So thank you, Kate and Kelsey, for taking time this evening to share your knowledge with us and really help us make good videos.
And thank you all so much for joining us. It was great. You guys had some great questions, and I came up with some ideas that I hadn't thought of before as well. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
thanks so much. This is great. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. All right. Have a good evening.